On Blues Radio International, we are continuing the viral antiviral world tour. This time we're in Australia with my good friend Fiona Boyes. Hi, Fiona.
G'day, how you doing?
It's great to see you, and it's great to be connected. I'm always writing at the bottom of things from deep down in Florida, but deep down in Florida isn't the beginning when we're talking about going south. We are
No,
way south here.
that's actually one of the first times I came and toured in America. I actually had T-shirts made up that said, Fiona Boyes Blues from way down south.
Yeah, this is way down
Which was,
south. Way down
yeah,
south.
Right.
We appreciate, despite the 13-hour time difference, you're connecting up with us because we're all going through something together here, even though we're all in different states of isolation. I wanted to start out by finding out, especially after the devastating fires that Australia's experienced, how the coronavirus is affecting daily life.
well, it's like everywhere, it's been changing by the day. So as we get more information, and now we've, in the last week, seen, all the hotels, pubs, and clubs closing. It's heartbreaking, really, because Australians are very resilient, and in my little town, we had our fire threat actually before Christmas, and we were encircled by fires. I was mortified to actually cancel a gig for about the first time in about 15 or 20 years because the fire had jumped the highway, and basically my little town, you couldn't get out. The highway was closed for an hour in either direction. So we've been through that on the back of a bad drought, and then the gig that I had to cancel, I rescheduled it for January, and I was on the road, and by the time that gig rolled round again, the night before, there was incredibly heavy rain that bucketed down. And so, yes, the highway was closed because of flooding, but that time I managed to get round the back way because I thought I'm not going to cancel one gig because of fires. The next one's because of flood. Well, of course, now we have pestilence. So, um,
Yeah, this is
it's
starting to
heartbreaking.
sound very biblical. You've got entrapment by fire, being flooded in place, and now a disease plague. But in some ways, the coronavirus must be tame compared to being surrounded by a circle of fire that's enclosing you.
Yes, but it's more insidious. And I think what I really feel for particularly our regional areas is that these very resilient communities were really having the beginning of a very successful campaign to get other Australians to go and visit, to go and see those fire ravaged places, to support their communities by taking their holidays there, by spending money in the communities. And so the tourism industry, from that point of view, which is vital to so much of our regional area, was just on the upswing. And of course, now everyone's in lockdown, and so I think that's going to make it, doubly difficult for people here in those areas, which is why these kind of initiatives to connect people via technology, I think, is so vital. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we believe it is. And although we are sequestered apart, Audrey and I are only maybe 12 to 15 miles apart, but we haven't seen each other except
Yeah.
this way for a while. And
About 2 weeks, yeah.
we're all connected, though. And the beautiful thing is that we've really jumped the pond in both directions in a short period of time and talked to so many of our friends like you that we haven't had a chance to catch up with. And in that sense, it's turning out to have some very positive sides. And the most amazing thing is that the musicians who are perhaps hardest hit in our community by the effects of coronavirus are the ones who are providing us the healing by giving us this beautiful music that you play. And to hear you play and sing is what's going to heal a lot of people when they see this. So I'm really looking
Yeah,
forward to hearing what you want to play for us.
yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think this is it's interesting because sometimes I think it's still prevalent, that attitude of people going, well, you're musicians, but what else? What do you really do? And I've been reflecting on that a lot lately because I'm just actually preparing to reissue my very first album, which was came out in 2000, album, and I am planning this year to re-release it as a 20th anniversary. The 20 years 20 year celebration in 2020 seemed like a really interesting synchronicity. So I was looking back on that time where I have actually literally had no other job apart from being a musician, playing mostly original blues music, which is non-mainstream music. And it's quite an achievement. I think a lot of people in the wider community don't always realise, for any creative person, the challenges of that on a day-to-day basis. And, the interesting thing is that although in some ways musicians can be seen as outsiders to most of normal society staff, I think we're actually great global citizens, in as much as almost always if there is a disaster or an issue that needs to be supported, sometimes the musicians are the first people to go, how can we help? Can we organise an event? Can we do something? Even though, often for many of us, we don't have a lot, and particularly if it is hand to mouth if you haven't got gigs. So, I'm proud of the musical community, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. What would you like to play for us? I know it's very early for you to be up and around, and you haven't even had coffee yet, so this is going to be startling, whatever it is.
So I thought I'd play a couple of instruments that we don't normally get a chance to play with. I'm not sure how I'm going sound-wise here, but this is my latest acquisition, and it's a 3-string cigar box. It's built by a guy called Steve Plater, Salty Dog, in Ballarat, Victoria, Australia. It's a song off my most recent album, and it's Voodoo and Shadows. And it's inspired by the great Jessie May Hemphill. I'm just adjusting my feet so I can... The problem with this is it's got no strap on it, so you have to kind of prop it on your knees like this. So a little bit of Jessie May attitude now. It's called Tell You a Story. Well, you can tell your story walking, I won't pay you no mind. Yeah, you can tell your story walking, I won't pay you. One day you look the kindness, kindness will be fine. Yeah, you can tell your story walking, well on your way. Yeah, you can tell your story walking, well on your way. And you name the street and what you say. Take a walk now. Now when we get to Beulah Land, there won't be no rich or poor. Now when we get to Beulah, there won't be rich or poor. And all I know is if you get them man, you keep them mighty sore. can't change you, and I don't wish you will. Yeah, I can't change you, man, and I don't wish you will. Been a long time, baby, and keep walking still. Yeah, walk on. Yeah, I'll tell you a story, walking. Yeah, well, yeah, you can tell your story walking. Yeah, well, on your way. If you're in what you say. Yeah, you'll read the street.
Oh, that's a way to start the morning off.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is that although it's not necessarily in the Mississippi Hills style, that song, I've spent a lot of time over the years going, to those kind of cool places in the Delta like Clarksdale, but it's only a couple of years ago that I sort of roamed Tacoma and places like that, and I had a chance to play Jessie Mae Hemphill's old guitar, complete with a bullet hole straight through the top bout. She actually had a crisis and shot her guitar at one stage, and it was still playable. But that song kind of, she was feisty, and so that song, I guess, was a bit about not taking on board people whose attitudes you don't care for. It's based on one of her progressions, although the feel's quite different.
Yeah. What's the blues scene like in Australia? Can you tell our listeners about that? Because you've got a relatively active community.
Yes, we do. It's actually, given our reasonably small population for the size of the country, we have a very active blues community all over the population centres, and some really interesting musicians, quite diverse. I'm always, at the moment I'm living in a gorgeous little fishing town in northern New South Wales called Yamba. Google it. It's on the mouth of our biggest river. So we have a lot of, big river blues and big river community things happening here. It's on the mouth of the Clarence River. But I am from Melbourne, and I'm always amazed when I go home to Melbourne, which has always been a good city for music, particularly. But there's always new bands since I left home, or since I visited last, and it's very encouraging. A lot of younger bands, a lot of new bands coming up, which are a younger demographic. So I think in that respect, the width of the demographic and the breadth of the styles that are played here is quite remarkable, actually.
Well, it's a vibrant community, and you're one of the leaders of it, so it's an honor for us to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
After Jessie Mae Hemphill, what do you think is the next appropriate thing to play? That's a tough act to follow.
Yeah.
That totally juke joint, we'll just get by. I just realised I feel like I want foot percussion, so I might just. There you go. I've just thrown a tambourine that was at hand on top of the guitar case that's propping up my feet.
There you go.
How we go? I don't know. What is it with today? This morning I'm all about low tones. Another song, and actually, here's the segue. Here's another song about walking, but here's one that's a little bit more up-tempo and joyous. And here's a song called Walking Around Money. And it's kind of, it's totally inspired, but it's woven out of some stories from Pinetop Perkins and Hubert Sumlin. And I love the way, well, to start, I must say that I feel humble and thrilled that I had a chance to meet musicians like this, because they're my heroes, and I would never have thought that some, gal from Melbourne, Australia would have a chance to hang out and talk with these guys. But I love the way, even Pinetop, I went to visit him, it was 97, it was the year after he recorded on one of my albums, and went to visit him in Austin, Texas. And we went out to Nuno's, his favourite club, and he sat straight down to hustling, sitting up in his corner with his CDs and playing with the house band. And because those guys, it didn't matter if you've got money in the bank. What you need is a bit of cash money, for walking around, some walking around money. And so anyway, I wrote this song, and I will say that night, Pinetop outlasted me. When it got to be about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, I said, Pinetop, I'm tired, I'm going home. And I left him at the club. He was still having a song called Walking Around Money here. Well, you can't expect a player to go out on the town without a little money for some walking around. Back, you just be sweet to your baby and leave it at that. Headed out tonight, I got my walking around money and I feel alright. Sitting there walking around money, go hand in hand. Trying to buy you do the best you can. Well, you got it, it makes me feel good, and I can walk tall in my neighborhood. Hey, heading out tonight, I got my walking around money and I feel alright. Sitting there walking around money, you gotta get by, you do the best you can. Make me feel good, and I walk tall in my neighborhood. Hey, heading out tonight, I got my walking around money and I feel alright. I'm gonna walk now. Well, I got this information direct from the web. See, sometimes you buy it and sometimes you sell. If you get real lucky, here's what you do. Yeah, you can stay in the line and hide it in your shoe. Yeah. Heading out tonight, I got my walking around money and I feel alright. Cause you can't expect a player to go out on the town without a little money for some walking around. I need cash on it. Don't hold back. You just be sweet to your baby and leave it at that. Hey. Heading out tonight, I got my walking around money and I feel alright. I said, heading out tonight, I got my walking around money and I got some money left. Just want a little bit of money. Feeling good, I'm feeling all right now.
All right. Very cool.
Love it.
How did you first get started in
Love it.
blues? Since you're not immersed in blues in Australia, how did blues come to be an important part of your life?
Well, for me personally, it came because I went to college, and I discovered in the first week or so of being in college that there was, when you go around, you're looking for different clubs and social activities. There was a folk and blues club which was very active on campus, and the guy who was president of that club was very interested, particularly in early blues. So he introduced me to a lot of stuff from the 20s and 30s. So that was my entry point. And a lot of quite raw stuff, which a lot of people at the time of highly produced pop and rock albums found these found this old blues stuff kind of orally offensive, and I just went, yes, this is fantastic. This is what I've been missing in my life, and it was a visceral aha moment, and I became a huge blues fan. There's a lot of blues gigs around Melbourne at the time. You could go and see blues most nights of the week. And having said that, I think that there, even in the average Aussie pub band, there was a good smattering of blues influences, I think, because of the British blues invasion was very big in Australia, as it was everywhere. And even a lot of our homegrown acts, even AC/DC, I hear blues in there. I hear those influences. So maybe it was that it was there, but we didn't all realize exactly what it was until a bit later.
Still, this is it's pretty differentiating stuff. I mean, not all your classmates and contemporaries were listening to Muddy Waters at that time.
No, but I think maybe in some ways that's been something that I just noticed that a lot of people find word of mouth music. It's sort of almost like this underground club that for a lot of people, and I think because sadly it's not as widely disseminated as it could be in popular culture, and I don't exactly know why, because I think a lot more people would love it if they had a chance to hear it, which is, I guess, what we're all doing here. But yeah, I think it's the sort of music that often people, if you ask them, will say that they had an older sibling or even their parents or someone introduced them to the music. So it's almost like going to a speakeasy and going, Joe sent me,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting also because everyone's listening to blues anyway if they're listening to popular music. It is always amusing to me to listen to a non-blues band get up and perform, and they'll play 3 or 4 songs in a 1-4-5 structure, and then they say, yeah, now we're going to play some blues. And I feel like standing up and saying, wait a minute, you've been playing blues all night.
Yeah. Well, now that I've shown you all the toys, I might actually just go back to my main guitar, my beloved Maiden Master Sound, and this is sort of, if I had to go somewhere and only take one guitar, this would be the one. Yeah, this is an Australian guitar, and Maiden guitars are from Melbourne, my hometown, and they're better known for their acoustic instruments, and I do play a Maiden acoustic as well. But this one was built for me. It's a Maiden Master Sound. Sadly, they're not making them anymore right now, but hopefully that'll change in the future. And I'm just going to have to put your fingers in your ears while I just adjust this. Not, normally my gig is a little bit more cleanly organised with AV boxes, so you don't go clunk and stuff. Here we go. Now this, what I thought I might do, after all these songs with attitude, might even tune this. That would be polite, wouldn't it? And I would say so. Yeah, it's just a. It is. but I'll try to do my best. Now, speaking of my fascination with different regional styles of blues, here's a song which is sort of influenced by Louisiana swamp pop, and I love those kind of echoes in a lot of Louisiana music of a little bit of twang. You can hear a little bit of twang, and you can hear the guitar part have a little nod and things like that. And along with the deep blues, every now and again you have a sweet moment. So this is for my husband, the preacher, and a reflection on the little things. The little things are important sometimes. And it ain't about money or all of your time. It's about your sweet love of mine. It's the little things, darling, make me love you like I do. The petty show so good, and I could try to the gun here. Tell me your troubles, darling. Tell me your case. It's the little things, darling, make me love you like I do. Petty show so good. I'm on share. Let's take some time. Sit down beside me, baby. Let's drink wine. It's the little things, darling, make me love you like I do. Hello, so a glance across the room, a brief gentle touch. Sometimes, darling, it don't take much. I may say in your arms for just a moment or two. Petty show song. It's the little things, darling, make me love you like I do. Petty show. It's the little things, darling, make me love you and I do. Petty show. Petty show.
Oh, that's beautiful, Fiona.
Thank you so much.
And you know what? It's funny. Sometimes one songs, and because maybe this is the whole thing, that idea that the little things we take for granted are sweet, and now of all times is a time to reflect on that, I think.
I think we need to do that, and I wanted
It
to
is.
get from you some perspective on what it's been like. What's happened in the last year for you in Australia, now culminating in the coronavirus situation. has changed life in a lot of ways. And I wonder whether the music for you has changed, or your view of the music, or your thoughts about it, having gone through these very life-threatening situations, not just one, but a couple of them in a short period of time.
Yeah, life is precious, music is precious, community is precious, and this is the craziest of all, because I think the other threats certainly that Australia have been all about people coming together to support one another and help out, and now it's time to be even more vigilant with that, because we can't physically get together. And it's a shame, because along with a lot of other musicians I know, not only do we rely on our live performance for our livelihoods, but also, I think, I've made friends not in Australia but all over the world, and we travel a lot. So for me, I had plans. I was back in America as guitar instructor with the Pinetop Perkins Foundation workshops in Clarksdale, Mississippi in June, festivals in America in June and July, Canada in August. Really, to be honest, Norway in September or October. You start looking down the track at what would have been a very exciting and vibrant year of international touring for me, as well as the many festivals. And we've got some great festivals here in Australia. And so it's just been the last week. I came back from some tour dates in South Australia. They've just closed the state borders there. But I did sort of the last little festival before they announced that this is dangerous and we need to shut everything down, and flew home. And the last week has just been, commiserating with friends and family and fellow musicians, and waiting for all the cancellations to roll in. It's a daunting time. It's a challenging time, but I think it's time to be ever more vigilant about our love for this music, the ability to share it, compassion and caring for others, and doing our best, I think.
Yeah, well, Doug MacLeod always says that, and I paraphrase this probably incorrectly, but it's a good point, that blues is not the music of subjugation, it's the music of overcoming.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
we
Yes.
are constantly reaching higher and hoping to free those who are enslaved, whether they're physically enslaved or whether they're enslaved by attitudes or by society. And blues, to me, is reaching higher on a variety of levels. And this is just another challenge to us, and we're going to roll right through it. And frankly, I would predict that we're going to end up with so much great music coming out of this, because number one, people are going to be creating good music while they're in lockdown. Number two, I've talked to so many musicians who never had time to really practice or hone their skills, who are now woodshedding, 3 and 4 hours a day. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like when all of you hit the stage again and we can all physically be in your proximity. It's going to be unbelievable.
So amazing.
So I see a very bright future on the other side of this, and we just have to stick together and get through it. And
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have time for one more this morning?
Yeah, I'm actually, now here's the thing, because I feel like playing this, and this could be ill-advised because it's actually a new song and I don't know, I'll remember all, but anyway. I've been thinking about this, and this actually I think came out of I was reading Blues magazine, just speaking of staying in touch with everybody, and I think it was Alan Bishop who said, this is if you're in love with music, it's not a short-term thing. You're kind of in it for life, and so I'm gonna have a go at a new song, and I may or may not remember all of it, but it's called "A Long-Term Affair," which is how I see music. Well, it's a long-term affair, baby. I'd be lying if sometimes I feel we ain't going nowhere. But there ain't nothing I would rather do. This is a love song to the blues. Yeah, it's a long time affair. Baby, it's a long time affair. You stole my heart and soul. That's true. Yeah, I can't quit you. Sweet old blues. Now I remember when I met you way back in school. I was so young, man, I was nothing but a little fool. Now they say that you're old hat, man, I'm old too. But love this time, sweet old blues. Whoa. Yeah, I remember when we met, babe. Was way back in school. I was so young, I was nothing but a little fool. Well, they say that you're old hat, man, I'm old too. But love is timeless, sweet old blues. 'Cause it's a long time affair. It's a long time affair. You stole my heart and soul, it's true. Yeah, I can't quit you, sweet old blue. Yeah, 'cause there ain't nothing I would rather do. This is a love song for the blues. This is a love song for the blues.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Now, has that ever been
That was
performed in
beautiful.
public before?
I love it.
Has that ever been performed publicly? One time.
Once recently on my tour, I unveiled it at a tiny gig in a little wine-producing town called Watervale. But I think that's a world debut in terms. And I have lost a couple of the lyrics there. But I was just thinking about it because people go, "Oh, you play blues?" It's like, still. And I go, yes. Because it's a long
Yes.
term affair, and it goes in and out of style, but I don't care. I can't quit you. Sweet old blues.
Oh, that's
Wonderful.
beautiful sentiment, beautifully expressed. And Fiona, thank you so much for getting up with us early this morning in Australia to share with our worldwide audience this amazing, life-changing music. And it's because of the musicians like you that we're all going to keep ourselves supported and together, connected, and ready to undertake whatever confronts us, because you give us strength with the beauty of the music you play.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully, next time I play that song, I'll have all the bits tweaked. But it's wonderful to be able to share this time together this morning, and I'm going to go and make coffee.
Okay, you should do that.
It's so nice to see you.
Okay. Well, I love you. Give my love to Steve as well. And the next time we see each other, we may do this again if you're up for it at some later date, depending on how long we're on lockdown. But I'm sure looking forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And hello, everybody. Love from down under.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing some.
Thank you
Take
very
care,
much.
Fiona. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.